Welcome back, guys. It is a really chilly January afternoon. I think my little thermometer's reading there just above zero. There's a nice frost all over the ground and it just feels so good to be back out. As you know, I've been a bit quiet on YouTube for the last couple of months, and as you know, last year I lost my father, I lost my dad in April, and about 6 months after that I was really unfortunate and I lost my gran as well. And then to top things off, 8 weeks after my gran passed away, my grandfather and my granda, he passed away also. So I just don't think he could bear to be without her. So I had a bit of a run of it. 3 the most prominent people in my life, people that have raised me, all passed away within the space of 9 months, and I just took a bit of a hit. But we're in a new year, so I need to wish you all a happy new year as well. And I'm back out. I'm starting off with a small one just to get me back in the swing of things and just to be back out, and it just feels absolutely superb to be back out. I've said my goodbyes, I've done everything there, and it's really shown me that you really do have one chance at this life. You really do. You need to do what you love, and this is what I love. It's just being out here, even though it is almost freezing. It just feels so good. But brilliant blue skies, amazing weather for today. I think it's to go bad tomorrow, but yeah, that's enough waffling. So it's just to give you a wee update. That's where I've been. I'm back in it and I cannot wait for 2022. We've got so many plans this year. It's such a busy year and it's all about making memories, and that's what it's about. So this is the Spirit of Scotland monument, but we'll go through this when I come back off the top of Loudoun Hill. And this is dedicated to the 2 people I'm going to talk about today. One being William Wallace and the second being Robert the Bruce. I'll tell you about Robert the Bruce first and we'll talk about Wallace when we're at the top. But yeah, let's crack on and get this one done. I feel it's going to be a cracker. So firstly, let's talk about Robert the Bruce and his involvement around here at Loudoun Hill. But before we get to his involvement at Loudoun Hill, we need to go back a couple of years to get the history of why he was here. So in February 1306, which is just over 716 years ago, Robert the Bruce had murdered John Comyn at the Church of the Greyfriars in Dumfries and Galloway. The 2 of them had rightful claims to the Scottish crown, and for whatever reason Robert the Bruce felt that he had to murder John Comyn that day. So in February, Bruce murdered John Comyn, and on the 25th of March the same year he was crowned the King of Scotland. Now Edward the Longshanks was obviously outraged by this, and he appointed somebody known as Aymer de Valence, the 2nd Earl of Pembroke, to come up to Scotland and sort out this new king and basically wipe him out so that England can keep the rule over Scotland. I'm actually stopping the story for a minute because I've just seen this. I've never seen anything like this in my life. I thought it was fluff on the stick, but it's actually ice. You see the way that's formed? That is... I've never seen anything like that in my life. It's just ice. It's just formed straight up. Absolutely. I've actually just found another one. Look at this. A clump of ice. Never seen anything like that. Anyway, on with the story. By June 1306, Aymer de Valence had an army of 3,000 troops, and they brought them up to Scotland and garrisoned them in a castle at Perth. Robert the Bruce had an army which was larger in numbers, and he marched up and challenged Aymer de Valence to battle. But the battle challenge was turned down for whatever reason, and it was said that the battle should be done the following day. So Robert the Bruce took his troops and they went to a woods just north of a little town called Methven, which is 6 miles away from Perth. But through the night, Aymer de Valence brought his men out of the castle and he attacked Robert the Bruce's army as they lay in their camp and basically shattered the Bruce's army. And it's said that during the fight, Robert the Bruce was almost captured twice, but twice his men rescued him and he got away. And because his army was shattered, he had no option but to go into exile, and he disappeared from Scotland for a number of months. I've just stopped at this spot before I head up the hill because it's absolutely stunning views back looking west towards Ayrshire. Absolutely, what a day. It's so crisp and so clear, it's absolutely stunning. But continuing the story of Robert the Bruce, so he was in exile for a number of months, having his army defeated, and some people say that he was hiding on the Outer Hebrides. Other people believe that he was hiding on Arran, which I can just see through the haze in the distance there, and others believe that he was on Rathlin Island, which is a small island located just north of modern day Northern Ireland. So I think it's fair to assume that he was on the west coast of Scotland somewhere hiding, and I guess that's part of being in exile, that you don't get found. But in February 1307 he returned to Scotland and he landed in Turnberry, which is South Ayrshire, and at the same time his brothers Thomas and Alexander, they returned to Scotland with a small force and they landed in Loch Ryan, or down at Loch Ryan, but they were met by a force commanded by Dungal MacDougall, which is quite a cool name to be fair, and he was a supporter of the English king. So Dungal MacDougall's forces beat Thomas and Alexander's small force, and both Thomas and Alexander were taken captive. Within 8 days, Edward the Longshank had ordered that they were executed. So Robert the Bruce's return to Scotland isn't really probably the way he thought it was going to go. He's now lost 2 of his brothers and their force is gone. So he's now back in Scotland with an even smaller force than what he started with. And we're talking a couple of hundred men. He's not got thousands anymore, a couple of hundred men. I'll crack on to the top of the hill and I'll tell you about another couple of wee bits before we get to Loudoun Hill and the Battle of Loudoun Hill. So you can just imagine how Robert the Bruce must be feeling. But a couple of months later, in April 1307, he came face to face again with none other than Aymer de Valence down at Glen Truil, and they had a small skirmish which I have covered in a previous vlog. And basically Robert the Bruce's men dished the Aymer de Valence's cavalry a bit of a bloody nose, and it was because of where they picked the battle. It was high-sided on one side and there was a loch on the other, and it was just a narrow path for the cavalry to go through. And Robert the Bruce's men were on the high ground and they rolled a load of rocks down, and they reckon fired arrows and chucked rocks, and basically the cavalry had nowhere to go. So the Bruce has finally given de Valence a bit of a taste of his own medicine, a bit of a punch in the face if you want. So now it's on. These forces are going to meet again, and it was just south of here at Loudoun Hill where they met a couple of months later. Imagine how Robert the Bruce must have been feeling now. He's back in Scotland, he's got a small army, and he's about to face Aymer de Valence for a third time. Robert the Bruce had an army now of about 600 men, and Aymer de Valence had 3,000, including heavy cavalry. And the date was set for the battle, the 10th of May, 1307. Robert the Bruce came up a few days early, and him and his men prepared the battlefield. They dug trenches and lined them with spikes and everything, and basically narrowed the battlefield. Again, almost similar to what happened at Glentrool. It was forcing Aymer de Valence's forces into a narrow channel, and that way this army of 3,000 could be compacted down so that the army of 600 could handle them. And that's exactly what happened. After the hours of fighting on the day, Robert the Bruce and his men finally broke the back of Aymer de Valence's forces, and he sent them turning away. And they said that hundreds of the English forces were killed, not all of them, but enough to break their spirit and break their will, and they fled. And that is the first battle of the Scottish Independence Wars that took place for the next 7 years, and it took place just over there. That triangular field now is where the Battle of Loudoun Hill took place, and I love coming. This is why I love coming to these places, because you can see it on maps and you can see pictures of it, but it's not until you're actually here and you're in it and you can experience it and you see it. And just to know that Robert the Bruce and Aymer de Valence's forces met on that very piece of ground and done battle. I just love coming to these places, and that's why it's so good to be back out. And I've waited until I was up here to tell you about the story of William Wallace and his involvement around here. Now, if you cast your mind back, Robert the Bruce was crowned in 1306, and 10 years before that, in 1296, let me do my math, is that right? Yes, that is right. So, in 1296, William Wallace was here around the area of Loudoun Hill for whatever reason, and he had a group of about 50 men with him. And on a particular day, there's a man known as the General Fenwick, was travelling from the east going west, taking supplies down to a garrison in Ayr. Now, William Wallace ambushed this General Fenwick, who had a force of about 200 men, and they gave him a bit of a bloody nose, another bloody nose situation, and scattered these men. And they took the supplies that they were going to travel down, or they were taken down to Ayr. But during the battle, the General Fenwick was killed. And what's sweet about that, or would have been sweet about that for William Wallace, is that it's reported that General Fenwick killed William Wallace's father a number of years before. So I don't know if it was a spur of the moment attack and he got lucky, or if it was an ambush that was set up especially for the General Fenwick. But either way, it's said that William Wallace killed, or William Wallace's men killed, the General Fenwick at this area around Loudoun Hill, somewhere down there. I'm believing it's going to be over this way, which is over to the east, because this mound here is known as Wallace's grave. And it's not because that's where William Wallace is buried, but they say that that mound is made of the bodies of the men that William Wallace killed that day. Who knows, it could be. But yeah, that is me. Loudoun Hill, absolutely amazing. It's been really busy up here today with people, and I'm the last one on the hill. I've been waiting for that sunset, but it's not happened. It's just dipped below those clouds, and the temperature is really dropping now. Before I head back to the car, I'm hoping the light holds out. I'll get down there to the Spirit of Scotland monument, and I'll tell you a wee bit about that, because it's in honour of both William Wallace and Robert the Bruce. For such a small hill, it's actually quite steep, and I'm being so cautious on the way down just now, because on the way up I done a wee bit with the camera, and as I was going away from the camera I absolutely stacked it. So I'll put that in now so you can see just how slidey it is. So forgive me for being overcautious on the way down, because it can easily crack your head in a rock, and that would be you, which is why I've got this thing. So this here is the Spirit of Scotland monument. Hopefully the camera's picking it up because it is getting a bit dark. But I'll tell you what it says on both sides. This side here is the side that is talks about Robert the Bruce, and it reads from the bottom left: "Thou sawest the strong arm of a Wallace raised to stem the tide of alien tyranny." And it's basically talking about Robert the Bruce carrying on the fight that William Wallace had started. And then on this side is a side for William Wallace, and it reads from here round: "The knight Fenwick that cruel was and keen, he had at death of Wallace's father been." So again, that's talking about William Wallace's involvement here in killing the General Fenwick. And through the middle there's a part, I'll try and get it, and it reads: "At Wallace's name, at Wallace's name, what Scottish blood but boils up in a springtide flood." And it's basically again saying that any Scotsman who hears Wallace's name gets the blood going. But yeah, there we have it. A cracking day out. I've probably stayed out longer than I was expecting to, just because I wanted to stay up the top and get that sunset. But it's just so good to be back out and to be back on the hills, and I hope that you've liked that. I hope that it's another wee insight into somewhere to come and visit and just watch yourself in the ice. As you've seen, it can be a bit treacherous for just such a small hill. But yeah, all that's left now is for me to head back to the car and head on home. But yeah, it's been brilliant. I'm absolutely loving being out. I think I'm kind of holding off going back to the car because I'm just enjoying so much being back out on the hills. Absolutely brilliant. But until next time, take care, and if you liked that video, give it a wee thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. And like I say, I'm going to be doing so much more in 2022 than I have done in 2021. And yeah, until next time, get out there and do what you love.